Welcome back to part 2, and we're going to continue work on this oscilloscope circuit board. We've already got all the surface mount components on, we've got all the through hole components on. So the next thing to do is some of this stuff on the outside. So we've got the connection here, which is for our probe. That goes at the back here. Move that capacitor out that way slightly, there we go. So that will go on just there, and we've also got the switches here. So these are, there's 2 rows of 3, and then there's a double one at the back here. So if you look at the circuit board, you can see there we go, you can see 2 rows of 3 and a double one at the back. So let's get one of those in now just to show you. There we go. And there's all the pins come through here. So as I said, we've got, sorry you can't see that, here we go. So we've got double at the back, 2 rows of 3 there, and we've also got 2 sort of locating case pins there as well. Same for that one there, same for that one there. And this at the back here is where the other connection goes, which is fallen out. Just slightly bending the wire at the back there so it holds it in place so I can show you. So there you go, that's that connection on there. Again, there's 2 connections that go to the case, and that's our signal cable just there. So now we'll get those soldered up in place. Right, so we've now got these 3 switches on and the connection on the back here. Just a word of warning. So let's have a look at these soldering at the back here. Okay, it's a bit messy, which I apologise for, but these are so close together that you might get a solder bridge. So you have to be really careful, because on a couple of these I got solder bridges between 2 of the pins because they're so close together. In fact, looking at that one, it might not be soldered properly at all, so I'm going to have to look at that one again. But yeah, so just be very careful because these pins are so close together, you might get a solder bridge. So let me just have another look at that one. That doesn't quite look soldered up. Yeah, that's better. And I'm just going to clean that one up there as well. There we go. So yeah, so just be very careful with those because it caused me a few problems with the solder bridge. Right, okay, so what's next then? So we've got the switches down here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So they are the little, I call them Space Invader switches because they remind me of the old Space Invaders with the little legs on the back of there. So those are going to go into here. No right or wrong way around by the looks of things, so just match the pins up. There we go. So just popping that in. Well, we'll pop it in if the pins stop bending. There we go. So what I'm doing is pushing the back legs in, and then with my thumbnail just gently persuading the front legs to go in, and that seems to work quite well. There we go. So that's got those in. Let's flip the board over, and then we can just simply solder the legs up just there. There. Fairly easy. Let's got those done. So there's the switches. So what's next? So there's another switch to do, which is this one here, which is the reset switch. So let's pop that on as well while we're here. Right, that's that one done. Excellent stuff. Right, next thing we can do then is the power socket, which has got 3 pins on it, and they just line up the circuit board just there. So I'm just going to just very gently just bend these pins slightly just to hold it in place. Just going to pop a bit of solder on there. Now the plug itself is all very wonky at the moment, as you can see. So what I'm going to do is just hold the socket with my finger behind the circuit board, warm that solder up, it just allows you to reseat it, so now it's nice and flat. So now that's done, we can solder up. There we go, so that's got the power connection done. Right, what else have we got to do? Let's have a look. I know I've got to do the big socket yet, so we'll come back to that later anyway. We've got the USB to do. Let's have a look at that. So let's do the USB, then that goes on to here. We've got 5 connections at the back, and we've got a couple of connections either side for the case. So let's put that on. There we go. And just the same as before, we're going to see if we can just dab a bit of solder on. Okay, so I just dabbed a bit of solder on there just to hold it into place. So we're just going to warm the solder up again and push with my finger at the other end, the other side, without bailing it, and just double check to make sure that's nice and flat against the circuit board, which it is. So that can allow us now to solder up the rest of the side. Right, so this is going to be a bit well, look at that, one massive solder bridge right across. Excellent. These pins are so close, it's unbelievable. Now I think I've got my magnifying glass out just to check that. Okay, so I've had a look through my magnifying glass, and I'll put a picture up so you can have a look at it as well. But that doesn't seem too bad. That was very close soldering on those pins, but they all look to be okay. First of all, apologies that my camera wasn't recording, but I've just soldered these two connections onto here, which is jumper 7, which is there, and jumper 8, which is there. Just quickly focus on those two for you. On the reverse side, it's 2 there and 2 there. Just straightforward soldering on those. Next thing we've got to do is the long one down here, which is this one here. Now I'm going to try a little trick with this one to see if it works, because the biggest problem with this one is to get it all lined up with that as well. So what's got to happen is that we've got to put this one on here, and we've got to get this one lined up correctly to go into these here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try a little something. I'm not too sure if it's going to work or not. Because I've already got these two here, what I thought about is soldering the respective pins on here. Then what I can do, I can slot that into place with these two as well. Now that should hold it square while I solder these pins up. Not too sure if it'll work or not, but I'm going to give it a try. So first of all, what I need to do is, put that down for you, is we need to put some, cut off 2 connections from this and solder them onto there and to there, and then we can get them on the other board.
The world would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. I suppose we all thought that, one way or another. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty. Destroyer of worlds. I suppose we all thought that, one way or another.
Right, okay, so a bit fiddly, and I discovered that the pins that I soldered on there were slightly wonky, but we've got that on there. So the idea is that this will now hold it in place, which it is doing, because I can turn it upside down, as we solder all the pins up here and the pins on here. Now, I'm not going to record that because it's going to take ages to solder all these this side and solder all these this side. So I will come back to you in about 10 minutes, quarter of an hour, when I've got that done. Well, that seems to work all right. Having those two connections on the end has held this in place, the long one in place. Sorry, you can't see that, can you? Here we go. Yeah, so having these two done first has held these in place. So now, as you can see, it's quite easy to remove, although you won't be removing it much, but everything's nicely lined up. There we go. So I'm not going to push it in at the moment, because what we need to do now is do some testing. We need to do testing with that off. So I'm going to leave that off. We've got to do a couple of things first though. We've got to make a join up here for testing, and we've also got to short out another jumper as well. So let me just double check what you got to do. Right, so the two things that you got to do is we've got to short out jumper 3, which is just there, and we've also got to make a loop and short out jumper 2 as well. So I'm just putting a little bit of flux on it. Right, that's got that one done. Right, that's got that done. Now I believe that this little loop here is so we can test the frequency. So but the instructions do say that under normal running mode, jumper, let me get this right, jumper 2, which is this one here, should be open. Yeah, so what we've got to do then is afterwards we've got to cut this off so we can use it normally. But what we've got to do next is testing of the actual voltages on the board itself. So let's get that set up. Okay, so there's a couple of things that we've got to do now. We're going to test to make sure that we're getting the right voltages across the board. So what we have to do first of all is down here there's a test point called TP22. So with your probes, just put your ground or your black on the ground here and put your red on the TP22. I've got my voltage on my voltage meter set for 20 volts. So if we do that, we get in 3.25. On the documentation it says 3.3, so that's good. So if you get in that, the next thing you need to do is to solder the little jumper that's down here, and that is JP4, which I've already done. I've already soldered this one up because I have to confess I cheated. I wanted to check the voltages first. So again, just check to make sure TP22 is 3.3 and then solder JP4. Now we can check the other voltages. So this one up here should be 5. It's close enough. 3.3. Yep. And this one should be, just bear with me for a second while I get my notes up. Okay, so the AV plus should be 4.9. Yep. And the AV minus should be minus 5 volts. Yep, that's okay. So I'll put a picture up of all the different points that you can test and all the different voltages. So they're okay, so we can move that out of the way. If you're interested, it is on the documentation. So if we have a look on here, these are all the different test points that you've got on the actual circuit board itself. Okay, so the next thing that we've got to do is put on the back on the LCD. Let's see if we carefully get this on. Making sure all the pins line up. That's okay. So when it boots, the little LED here should actually flash twice. So let's see what happens. Yep, so the LEDs flash twice and we've got a display. That's good. Okay, so let's plug in our test leads. Where have I put the test leads? There we are. So we can plug in our test leads. There we go. And what we can do now is put the red lead, leave the black lead to one side. We put the red lead on this little jumper that we made at the top. So we can do that. And what we need to do is the sensor at the bottom here needs to be set to X5. The switch here needs to be put in the middle, which is 0.1. And the CPL here needs to be moved across to DC. So I hope you can see that all right. So the next thing that we need to check, we need to make sure that the corners here are nice corners and that the interference here has got no spikes in it. Now I'm quite fortunate because mine hasn't, but if it does, then you have to use the adjusters at the side here. So if I alter one of these adjusters, you can see that there's more interference on there now. I'll turn that back. There's less interference. So I'll do this one as well. You can see that there's more interference showing. Turn it back, there we go, so there's less. This is on 2 milliseconds as well. If you want to change that, that needs to change. What you do is you use the select button, and as you can see it's moving it around the screen. So when the square is around the 2 milliseconds, you can use the plus and minus to change the speed. So, but for testing, that needs to be on 0.2, so you can see the angles to make sure that they're right. So now we've done that, we've now done it, we've now tested it so it's actually working correctly. And the only other thing that we can do is just to physically put our finger on the red lead as well, and as you can see it's causing interference, so it also means that it's working. So I think that's all the testing that we need to do on this, so that looks like it's working okay. For normal operational use, we need to disconnect this test link across here, and then it should be fine. So the only other thing I haven't done with this is I don't have a case. I don't have one of those clear cases to go around. So I'm going to order those on eBay, one of those on eBay, and then I can make that at a later time. But that, I think, is, oh, there's just a cover on the LCD just there, look. But I think I'll leave that on until I get me acrylic case to go on there. So that just shows it working, which is good. Now, there's loads of videos on YouTube as to how to actually use this for testing. I'm not here to show you what to do for testing. I'm just here to do is to show you how it's built. I hope you've enjoyed watching me build this. I know I missed out a few steps, but you don't want to see me soldering everything up. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found some tips. If you like my videos, please subscribe, and also please give me a thumbs up. Thanks very much. Join me soon.